The flag of the USSR identified as the red Antichrist beast, which was or existed from 1922 when the CPSU, or the Communist Party of the Soviet Union founded by Vladimir Lenin, was the ruling de facto or the one and only communist party in the Union of the Soviet Socialist government of Russia with her 15 republics to 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed and the CPSU was outlawed by the new Democratic President Boris Yeltsin, who succeeded Mr. Mikhail Gorbachev, the last Soviet president and chairman of the CPSU. This prophecy that the USSR shall die temporarily as the red beast of Revelation 17 verse 8, which was or existed before, was fulfilled on the 25th of December 1991, about 31 years ago. The state flag of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or in Russian, Soyúza Sovétskikh Socialistических Respúblik, commonly known as the Soviet flag, or in Russian, the Sovétsky flag, was the official state flag of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic (USSR), or CCCP 1.0 from 1922 to 1991. The flag's design and symbolism are derived from several sources, but emerged during the Red October Revolution of 1917, which started in St. Petersburg, the former capital of Tsarist Russia, and later engulfed the whole of the Russian nation in bloody civil wars, and which was finally won by the Red Bolsheviks, who formed and constituted the Soviet, in Russian meaning the National Assembly or Governing Council of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, or CPSU in short. Hence the red-colored background of the flag, which commemorates the bloody Russian Revolution and its aftermath. The flag is also an international symbol of the communist movement as a whole. The design is a solid field of red adorned with a unique gold emblem in the upper hoist quarter. However, the red flag was a traditional revolutionary symbol long before 1917, and its incorporation into the flag paid tribute to the international aspect of workers' revolution. The iconic hammer and sickle design was a modern industrial touch adopted from the Russian Revolution. The union of the hammer, symbolizing the workers, and the sickle, symbolizing the peasants or farmers, represents the victorious and ensuring revolutionary alliance. The famous emblem is topped by a gold-bordered star representing the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. The first flag was adopted in December 1922. In 1923, 1924, 1936, and 1955, a statute on the flag was adopted which resulted in a change of the hammer's handle length and the shape of the sickle. In 1980, an amendment was made to the 1955 decree which removed the hammer and sickle on the reverse side of the flag. The legal description remained completely unchanged. The design of the 1955 Soviet flag has served as the basis for all the Soviet Republic flags. Revelation 13 verse 16 to 18 predicted that he, the false prophet or the religious, economic, and commercial minister of the Antichrist dictator or the lamb-like beast from the land or Israel causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark, or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. The number 666 is a man's number as translated by the Berean Literal Bible, or man's number, Net Bible Translation, meaning a human number or a number of mankind as the NASB lexicon suggests, or a human total number as the ISV or International Standard Version renders it. Therefore, according to 4 of these alternative Bible translations, the mark of the beast may not be the number or numerical value of a person's name as counted using gematria, which is the changing of a person's name into letters in the original Hebrew or Greek or even Latin and then summing up the values of each letter to see if it adds up to 666 or 616 to identify the man of sin as the Antichrist person. Thus the mark of the beast may not necessarily be a number of a man or person such as Neron Caesar in Greek or Kaiser Nero in Old Latin or Romulus or of Latinos in Greek, the founder of the city of Rome, which many think is a code or secret name for Rome as Mystery Babylon the Great. Nor is it the number of the Pope's mitre of the Vatican, Italy, or of Mohammed the false prophet of Islam with Mecca or now Neom in Saudi Arabia as Mystery Babylon, or of Ronald Reagan the former president of the US with New York or Washington, D.C. as Mystery Babylon, or Henry Kissinger the Jewish Foreign Secretary of the US during President Jimmy Carter's Camp David Accords, or even of the Antichrist person, the man of sin and the son of perdition himself. So, is the insignia, sign, ensign, or symbol of the USSR, which is the hammer and sickle emblem of the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republics without or with the red star of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union above them, the mark of the red Antichrist beast, which when isolated and decoded into numbers of the Greek letters and counted, calculated, or added up totaled 616 or 666 as a man's or human or mankind number? The number of the red beast is preserved in the Papyrus 47, p. Chester Betty 3, collections dated to the early 3rd century. The chi, z, and digamma or stigma letters pointed to by the arrow here, when isolated by the red ring around it and magnified, has a numerical value of 600 for chi indicated by an X, 60 for z indicated by a Z with a line across it as an uncial or capital letters form, or a cursive or minuscule form of a curved serpentine E, and the number 6, which is the ancient Greek letter used as a number for digamma or stigma, which looks like a small s, which had become obsolete in Koine and modern Greek. The summation of the numerical values of these three letters chi, z, and stigma gives a total of 666, which appears like the insignia or sign or symbol or mark of the red Antichrist beast, which is represented as the hammer and sickle with a red star above them, the famous emblem of the flag of the Soviet Union. The other two great uncial papyri manuscripts, found in Egypt, namely the Codex Sinaiticus dated as between 330 to 350 AD and the Codex Alexandricus dated as between 400 to 440 AD, also has chi, z, and stigma as 666 with a line across the top of them indicating that they should be read as a number rather than a word. Besides, all the other majority manuscript written in the cursive or minuscule as numbers or in full in the original Koine Greek. However, the oldest manuscript yet found of Revelation chapter 13 verse 18 has a chi, iota, and digamma or stigma and not chi, z and digamma or stigma, a total of 666, the popular number of the beast, but 616 when chi, which is 600 plus iota, which is 10 plus digamma or stigma, which is the number 6, are calculated or added up. The photo shows a preserved fragment from Papyrus 115 labeled as P115 in brackets of Revelation 13 verse 18 in the 66th volume of the Ussr series, P.Oxy. 4499, discovered in Ussr, Egypt in 2005, dated around 275 AD, which was 1,700 years old, the oldest fragments of a manuscript yet found of the Book of Revelation in the New Testament. Thus Papyrus 115, which is the oldest preserved manuscript of the Book of Revelation as of 2017, as well as other ancient sources like Codex Ephraemi Rescriptus, give the number of the beast as chi, iota, and stigma or digamma, which transliterable in Arabic numerals as 616 and not 666, which is chi, z, and stigma when written as numbers. The 616 numbers when written in full is hexacosio-decahex, which is literal for 616, but 666 when written in full as the middle deca or 10 is replaced instead of hexaconta, which is 60. Although Irenaeus, a 2nd century church father, affirmed the number of the beast to be 666 and reported several scribal errors of the number, theologians have doubts about the traditional reading because of the appearance of the figure 616 in the Codex Ephraemi Rescriptus, which was one of the 4 great uncial codices, as well as in the Latin version of Tychonius, and in an ancient Armenian version. Irenaeus knew about the 616 reading, but did not adopt it. In the 370s, correcting the existing Latin language version of the New Testament, commonly referred to as the Vetus Latina or Old Latin, Jerome retained 666. Papyrus 115 and Ephremi rescriptors have led some scholars to regard 616 as the original number of the beast. According to Paul Louis, the number 666 has been substituted for 616 either by analogy with 888, the Greek number of Jesus according to Gustav Adolf Deismann, or because it is a triangular number, the sum of the first 36 numbers, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 and so on plus 36 is equal to 666. So whatever the case may be, whether 616 has been tempered with by the New Testament Greek scribes and exchanged for 666 due to eschatological and theological bias, we shall now see that both 666 or its variant 616 can be observed in the Greek letters when decoded into numbers of the star, hammer, and sickle emblem or mark of atheistic Marxist, Soviet, Socialist, and Communist-influenced political parties worldwide. The hammer, sickle, and the red star emblem of communism and the International Communist Countries Organization, Comintern, which is now dead and may be revived again by the coming Red Tsar or Russian Caesar, could indeed be the mark of the red Antichrist beast as revealed to the Apostle John in Revelation chapters 17 and 18. If the red beast which was, is not and yet is all be present, by arising out of the abyss and be revived by the CPRF or Communist Party of the Russian Federation under Mr. Gennady Zyuganov as the CCCF or the Union of Soviet Socialist Federation, SSSF in Cyrillic, or USSR 2.0. Here is a photo of the cover of the book entitled The ABC of Revelation and the Beast by Mr. Nicholas Brand, showing that the Greek letters, chi, iota, and digamma decoded as numbers in the hammer and sickle emblem of the Soviet Union added up to a total 616. And here is a Soviet poster of Lenin speaking in front of a flipped red flag of the Soviet Union with the reversed hammer and sickle represented as chi or X for the crossed hammer and sickle, the iota or I for the hammer's head and the digamma or stigma for the sickle. The mark X or chi, which is equal to 600 in Greek. I or iota equals 10. The C mark is digamma or S. Stigma is the ancient Greek number for 6. The mark or symbol of the red Antichrist beast when calculated, adds up to 616. But if you plus the value of 50, which is the number for the red star of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union or the CPSU founded and led by Lenin, the total is 666 exactly, which is the number of the red Antichrist beast or the Soviet Union, the superpower then before it was killed or dissolute by President Boris Yeltsin. CIS or Commonwealth of Independent States in the Belarus Forest Reserve on the 8th of December 1991, formed first by his Russian Federation, the Belarus, and the Ukraine, with other ex-Soviet socialist republics, which has also declared independence from the USSR joining in later. This is an iconic photograph of raising a 666 red flag over the Reichstag building in Berlin after the defeat and surrender of Hitler's Nazi Germany in 1945. The total numerical values of the three Greek letters, chi, iota, digamma and the red star is equal to 666. Here is one of the last red Soviet flags flown on the Kremlin, displayed at the Checkpoint Charlie Museum in Berlin. Again, the number of the hammer, represented by the Greek letters chi for 600 and iota for 10 and the sickle, which is the digamma for 6 and a star as 50, adds up to a total of 666 exactly. How awesome and bullseye accurate! This is eye-opening and very amazing. As the reverse or flipped cover of Mr. Nicholas Brand's book shows the correct faced side position of the hammer and sickle emblem as it appears in the red flag of the Soviet Union after 1955 even until today is still in use as displayed by some nostalgic Russian tanks who invaded Ukraine on February 24, 2022. Is this the number and mark or insignia of the red Antichrist beast? X or chi equals 600. I or iota equals 10. A flipped C or digamma equals 6. Which when counted gives a total of 616, as the Papyrus 115, the oldest Greek manuscript, and the Codex Ephraemi Rescriptus had preserved the number which is 50 short of the 666 number of the majority of Greek manuscripts. Is this the number and mark or insignia of the red Antichrist beast? X or chi equals 600. I or iota equals 10. A flipped C or digamma equals 6. Which when counted gives a total of 616, as the Papyrus 115, the oldest Greek manuscript, and the Codex Ephraemi Rescriptus had preserved the number which is 50 short of the 666 number of the majority of Greek manuscripts. The Kremlin Red Star. 1 iota or I in Greek equals 10. 5 iotas or I's joined and forming the small red and yellow star at the center of the big star, total is equal to 50. The Medal of the Order of the Patriotic War, First Class. The circular words engraved in Russian on the Red Star medal is Otechestvenaya Voyna, which means the patriotic war which the Soviet Red Armies won over Hitler's Nazi Germany in 1945. The hammer and sickle decoded in Greek chi or X as number is 600, 1 iota or I is 10, therefore 6 iotas or I's including the 5 iotas or 5 I's of the red star, 50, is equal to 60. Now add this total number 660 with the digamma or C which is 6, will add up to a total of 666 exactly. This is an emblem of a Soviet standard commemorating the patriotic war or Otechestvenaya Voyna in Russian. The numerical values of the hammerhead represented by an iota or Greek I which is 10, plus the 5 iotas of the red star equals 60, the sickle is represented as a flipped digamma or C equals 6 plus the crossed hammer and sickle represented by the chi or X or 600. The total is 666 exactly. The hammer and sickle is a common theme of communist insignia. This is an example of a hammer and sickle and a red star design from the flag of the Soviet Union, which in Greek letters X or pi, I or iota and a flipped digamma or stigma when converted to numbers is 600 plus 10 plus 6 which is equal to a total of 616. But if the numerical values of 5 I's or iotas of the red star or 50 is added is equal to a net total of 666 exactly. A red-rimmed communist star with a hammerhead, represented by an iota which is the number 10 with its handle crossed like an X or pi, for the number 600 with a sickle represented by a flipped C or digamma for the number 6. Their total numerical value is 666 exactly. The logo of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union or abbreviated as CPSU. In Russian is called Kommunistkaya Partия Sovetskogo Soyúza and abbreviated in Cyrillic as KPCC or KPSS in English. The hammer and sickle mark like AX or chi and AI or iota and a reverse C or digamma in Greek numbers for 600 plus 10 plus 6 is 616. However, plus the Communist Party star or 5 iotas or ice, which is 50, adds up to a net total of 666 exactly. The Marxist-Leninist Communist or MLKP badge has chi or x equals 600, iota or I equals 10, a flipped digamma C or sigma which looks like a small s which is used as the number 6 and not as an alphabet, plus the number 50 of the red star is equal to 666 exactly. And so are all the rest of the hammer, sickle, and star emblems of the logos, the red flags and coat of arms of the Soviet Union or USSR or the Russia Soviet Federative Socialist Republic or SFSR or of Soviet Moscow. The total number and mark of the red beast with number 50 of the red star is 666 exactly, but without it is 616, as we shall see quickly in the following slides, without the same monotonous repetition which should be very crystal clear to you by now. The naval ensign of the Soviet Union from 1951 to 1991. 1 iota of the hammer's head is 10, 5 iotas of the red star is 50, so 6 i's or iotas is 60 plus x or chi or 600 plus a flipped C or digamma, 6, total is 666 exactly. The Soviet naval cap or the Marinor's Capello. The red star is 50 plus 616, the total number of the crossed hammer and sickle which is formed by the chi or x, the iota, or I and the flipped digamma or C adds up to a total of 666 on the forehead of the Soviet Russians' Marines' caps. Is this an ominous foreshadow of the future 666 insignia or mark of the red Antichrist beast that everyone during the Great Tribulation under a coming red Tsar or a Russian Caesar must wear on their foreheads or tattooed on their right hands or arms, so that without them no one can buy or sell, that is to do any business or commercial transaction? This is a symbol of the Soviet Air Forces, Air Defense Forces and Naval Aviation from 1945 to 1991. It is a red star with white borders which, in the absence of the hammer and sickle represented by the Greek letter chi or x equals 600, iota or I equals 10 and digamma or stigma equals 6 totaling 616 is 50 only, but, with the presence of the hammer and sickle, whose total value is 616 adds up to 666 exactly, as in this symbol of the Workers' and Peasants' Red Army or the Soviet Land or Ground Forces. An old Soviet stamp in 1958 commemorates the 40 years anniversary of the Communist Party Armed Forces as CPA 58. The red star equals 50 plus the number of the hammer and sickle 616 is equal to 666. Notice that the numbers on the officers' caps or helmets or on their foreheads are either 666 for the Navy and Army or 666 minus 616, the number of the hammer and sickle, which is only 50, or the number of the red star of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, CPSU for the Air Force. The hammer and sickle ensign or mark with a pair of wings on Aeroflot, the Soviet and Russian aeroplanes or airplanes. Aeroflot in Russian means air fleet. Here the hammer and sickle chi, iota, and stigma in Greek numbers 600 plus 10 plus 6 equals a total of 616, minus 50 of the absent Communist Party star, which would add up to 666. But now in this flag of the Soviet or Russian Aeroflot seen here, which has a yellow star of 50 which adds to the chi or x, 600, iota or I, 10 and I gamma, 6 has a total numerical value of 666 exactly. Sander Pinksaheli's photo art of the hammer and sickle represented as a chi, an iota, and a digamma in Greek letters when converted into numerals and added up as 600 plus 10 plus 6 equals total 666. The Waka and Kolhoz woman art sculpture by Rabachibi Kolhoznitsa with a man holding a hammer and the woman lifting up a sickle is decoded as chi, iota, and digamma, or 600 plus 10 plus 6 is equal to 616 minus the 50 of the Communist star, which included would add up to 666. The communist parties of about 70 nations of the world with the hammer and sickle mark of the red Antichrist beast, or if represented by the Greek letters chi or 600 plus iota or 10 plus digamma or 6, gives a total of 616 without the number 50 of the red star of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, which, when added up, reveal the 666 number of the red beast exactly. They are listed here in alphabetical order: Albania, Algeria, Cambodia or Kampuchea, Chile, GDR or the German Democratic Republic or East Germany, the Weimar Germany, Israel, Italy, Poland, Portugal, Nepal, Netherlands, Turkey, 1920, Turkey 2001, Angola, Argentina, China, Colombia, Germany, Great Britain, Jordan, Kurdistan, Romania, the Russian Federation, Nicaragua, North Korea, Ukraine, Uruguay, Australia, Bangladesh, Congo-Brazzaville, Congo-Kinshasa, Greece, Guatemala, Laos, Luxembourg, South Africa, Spain, Norway, Pakistan, USA, USSR, 1924, Belarus, Bhutan, Côte d'Ivoire or the Ivory Coast, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, India, Malta, Mexico, Sri Lanka or former Ceylon, Swaziland, Panama, Paraguay, USSR, 1936, USSR, 1955, Brazil, Burkina Faso, Ecuador, France, Indonesia, Ireland, Moldova, Myanmar or former Burma, Thailand or former Siam, Tunisia, Peru, Philippines, Vietnam and Yugoslavia. The symbol of some of these socialist or former communist nations have a compass-like, GDR, or a semi-shaped gear like Turkey 2001, Angola and USA, or a hoe like in North Korea, Congo-Brazzaville and Burkina Faso, or a chopper like Côte d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast, or a long knife like in Panama, replacing the sickle of the Soviet flag. All nations having communist or socialist political parties has the hammer except Angola, which has a chopper instead. Some of the sickles are flipped like a digamma or C or like a stigma S, Algeria and France.
Moscow, 30 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union. On the banks of the Moskva River, the gleaming towers of a new business district stretch into the sky, presenting a confident picture of the new Russia. A short distance away, above the Kremlin, the red star of the Soviet Union still glimmers. And at Red Square in the mausoleum lies the leader of the October Revolution of 1917, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. The long lines in front of the mausoleum may have disappeared, but the Kremlin has remained the center of power. It is led by Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation. He rules over a country that, even without the former Soviet republics, is still the largest in the world. Russia. In the Kremlin, a new government has long since taken over. But across the country, the old symbols are as powerful as ever. The legacy of the former Soviet Union is a complex one. The Soviet Empire covered a sixth of the Earth's surface and was home to 280 million people. The collapse of this giant superstate in 1991 was an event unprecedented in history. A superpower abolished itself. Since then, 15 new states have been struggling to find their place in the world order. Some have gravitated towards Western Europe, while others look to China. But all are defined by their relationship to Russia. Instead of the red Soviet banner, today the Russian flag flies over the Kremlin. A complex legacy. Despite the dissolution, the old dependencies continue to exist. The entire infrastructure of roads and railways, power lines, and oil and gas pipelines was built according to the needs of the Soviet Union and its centralized power base in Moscow. The Institute of Economics at the Academy of Sciences is examining the relationships to Moscow, as they were and as they are now. Ruslan Grinberg is the Institute's director. This longtime confidant of Mikhail Gorbachev has reached a simple conclusion.
You have to understand that all states of the post-Soviet region have one single principle when it comes to their relationship with Russia. And it's been this way for 30 years, achieving a maximum of economic advantage from Russia while having a minimum of political obligations.
The Soviet Union was formed in 1922 as a joining together of the Union republics, voluntarily. At least this is how it was framed in the Constitution. But the right to secede from the Union had never been tried in practice, and certainly not a withdrawal of all its members. But in 1991, that is what happened. The country dissolved into its constituent parts. The West looked on, amazed at the rapid disintegration, and 25 million Russians were left in shock. They suddenly found themselves inhabitants of other countries, compounded by the uncertainty of whether they would be accepted there as citizens or be allowed to keep their homes and land. Vladislav Belov is the director at the Center of German Studies. He is no political ally of Vladimir Putin, but he agrees with the president's claim that the fall of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century.
One can agree with his statement, if by geopolitics you primarily mean the interests of certain people. And if we consider the fates of millions of those who, due to the unconstitutional, I repeat, unconstitutional dissolution of the USSR, found themselves trapped behind the borders of the country in which they thought they lived, I'm talking about 25 million Russian-speaking citizens who, overnight, woke up to find themselves living in another country. Today, we are in one country. Tomorrow, we wake up and find ourselves in another. These people were treated as second class. And that is, of course, a catastrophe.
At first, there were attempts to rebuild the ruins. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Tauride Palace in St. Petersburg was to become the seat of the Commonwealth of Independent States, a loose organization of the former Soviet republics. However, the three Baltic states, Georgia and Ukraine, withdrew or chose not to participate. And the Commonwealth of the remaining states exists only on paper. No summits have been held in years. The CIS has no power. Gerhard Mangot works at the University of Innsbruck in Austria and is one of the West's most renowned Russia experts. He also sees the CIS as a failed attempt to continue the legacy of the Soviet Union.
Although in Moscow under Yeltsin there was certainly the expectation that some kind of confederation would be possible. But as the Armenian president said at the time, this confederation of independent states was more like a vehicle for an amicable divorce. And indeed, that's all it was. It's incredible that this association still exists today, at least on paper, because no one wants to kill the baby, as it were, by dissolving the organization entirely. But it simply has no practical political significance anymore. The Soviet citizen developed the skills required to survive in a repressive state. He learned to deceive the state, to tolerate its arbitrary judgments, to feign loyalty towards it, all while taking care of his own problems and trying to survive in this hard and repressive environment. The advent of Putin and his authoritarian system was no accident, but rather a continuation of the Soviet regime.
There is only one real difference to the Soviet Union. Today, the blessing no longer comes from a single, all-powerful party. Putin, the one-time member of the Communist Party, now has the backing of a different authority, the Russian Orthodox Church. The Church has no objection to the strengthening of conservative values in Russia. "30 years ago, the red flag of the Soviet Union was taken down from the Kremlin. Hardly anyone objected.
We entered Red Square, 300 people, who had come to speak out against this astonishing decision. And there were 287 million people in the USSR. I always say, for 1 million citizens, only a single person showed up to protect the Soviet Union. It was very strange.
Russia is the largest of the successor states. It is still struggling to find its place between Europe and Asia.
The developments of the past 30 years have been confusing and difficult. As a result, Russia has regained its status as a global political player. But at the same time, it's fallen far short of where it could be today with a more visionary leadership.
Western European-style democracy is not a model Russia is trying to emulate. Pride in Russia's greatness and an appeal to its shared traditions. These are what will make the country strong.
That's why there is such a longing for one's childhood, for the school years, for our time as students. But that's not much about the Soviet Union. Putin was right when he said, anyone who doesn't mourn the Soviet Union has no heart, but anyone who would go back to what it was has no head.
But Bible prophecies in Revelation 17 verse 7 to 18 predicted that the red Antichrist beast or the Soviet dictator whose insignia, emblem, sign, and symbol or mark coded in a human number as 666 or 616, will be alongside or present shortly. After it or he is arisen from the abyss or resurrected and revived as the new and yet old Soviet Union or USSR or CCCP 2.0. The new flag of the Communist Party of the Russian Federation or KPRF in short. The hammer and sickle can be decoded as X or chi, I or iota and a reverse digamma C, which in Greek numbers are 600 plus 10 plus 6 equals total 616. Or 666 minus a communist star, 50 is 616. The new logo of the Communist Party of the Russian Federation. A hammer and sickle are decoded the same as XIC, 600 plus 10 plus 6 equals total 616. the new, yet old logo of the Communists of Russia. A communist star equals 50 plus a hammer and sickle, X or pi, I or iota, and a reversed digamma, C, which in Greek numbers are 600, 10, and 6 adds up to a total 666. The slogan in Russian, Proletarii v Stran, Sojedinjitesh, means proletarians or workers of the world, unite, which is the motto of the Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in 1848. You have nothing to lose but your chains was the rallying slogan to members of the working classes throughout the world, in essence to cooperate as one to defeat capitalism and break off the bondage of the bourgeoisie or upper class of a capitalistic society so as to achieve victory in the class struggle. The two Russian words at the bottom is Komunisti Rossi, meaning communists of Russia. The logo of the Union of Communist Parties, or CKP in short, and the Communist Party of the Soviet Union abbreviated as KPSS in Cyrillic or CPSU in English. Founded and led by Gennady Zyuganov in 1993. A communist star equals 50 plus a hammer and sickle represented by the X or pi, I or iota, and a reversed digamma or C, which are 600 plus 10 plus 6 equals total 666 exactly. Will this be the new emblem of the revived USSR? CCPF is short in Cyrillic for Sotsialistícheskikh Rossiyskoy Federatsy, which means the Union of Socialist Russian Federation, or USRF in short, which may become the CCCP or USSR 2.0 in the future. A communist red star equals 50 plus a hammer and sickle represented by XIC in Greek numbers are 600 plus 10 plus 6 equals total 666, the satanic number of the red Antichrist beast, which will become the world's last superpower so that no one, not even the United States, NATO, or the European Union of the West and the Mediterranean Union of North Africa and the Middle East nor Red China, Japan and the two Koreas in the East may dare to challenge and wage war against or defeat it to fulfill the ominous prophetic word, who is like the beast and who can fight against it in Revelation 13 verse 4 after having its deadly wound which has been healed by Satan the devil, who gave and will delegate it his power and his throne and great authority again by resurrecting it from the death after its fall, collapse, and demise. On December 25, 1991, an event which the Russian President Vladimir Putin, an ex-KGB agent, said, is the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. The mark or symbol of the red Antichrist beast when calculated, adds up to 616. But if you plus the value of 50, which is the number for the red star of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union or the CPSU founded and led by Lenin, the total is 666 exactly, which is the number of the red Antichrist beast or the Soviet Union, which was the superpower then before it was killed or dissolved by President Boris Yeltsin's Belovezhia Accords forming CIS or Commonwealth of Independent States in the Byelorussian or Beloveshkaya Pushcha Forest Reserve in Vyskyly, Belarus on the 8th December 1991 by uniting his Russian Federation, with the ex-Belarusian and the ex-Ukrainian republics, which has also seceded from Soviet Union and declared their independence, together with other ex-SSR or Soviet Socialist republics who joined later. A communist star, 50 in numerical value plus the Greek chi, iota, and digamma, which is 616, gives a total of 666, the number and mark of the red Antichrist beast tattooed on the right hand. Could the tattoo incorporate a future Soviet socialist or communist symbol with a barcode system of buying and selling in the coming Great Tribulation period with 3 double lines, decoded by John, a digital barcode expert, as the number 666 or a 6 at the right, center, and left side, so that without it tattooed or marked on the right hand or forehead no one can buy or sell? Or will it be a verichip or QR code authorized by the Soviet Communist state and made mandatory for all commercial transactions of buying and selling by the false prophet of a coming Red Tsar in his evil empire of a new Soviet Union revived by the CPRF or the Communist Party of the Russian Federation as the USRF or Union of Socialist Russian Federation, formed by bringing in together all the recently revived communist parties of the Soviet Union, or the CPSU as the UCP or the Union of Communist Parties, resurrecting the old Soviet Union as the CCCP or USSR 2.0. So wake up, folks, friends and foes, and be on a red alert. You don't know the man's name exactly for now, but you know the number 666. So don't you get the mark of the red Antichrist beast? For it is a human or earthly number, not an angelic or divine number. And the total numerical value of its name, which is also a mark, is 666, or perhaps its variant, 616, is also correct. Revelation 13 verse 18 reveals to us